If you are a newer to intermediate cyclist, you have no doubt found out how important being able to corner effectively is in terms of you being able to keep up with the group. See, cycling isn't always about how fit you are. Oftentimes your skill set and your efficiency is as important. When it comes to cornering, there's three aspects that I think every cyclist needs to focus on developing. The first one being learning how to take the right line or the right arc to bend around a corner. Second one being able to brake and shift effectively, so not only are you the right speed, but you're in the right gear for the entrance and exit of the corner. And the last part, having to do with traction, making sure that you're leading the bike efficiently and properly to maximize your speed, your balance, and your weight distribution. Today, we're going to talk about all three of those areas and talk about some tips that can help us to understand and develop into a more rounded cyclist. Welcome to the laboratory. Now let's talk about the science behind, let's talk about the science behind cornering and developing that skill properly. I've known people who got involved in a sport with fairly good fitness and they go for a group ride and they get dropped. And for the life of them, they can't figure out why they got dropped. And when you're out there riding with them, aside from seeing perhaps a poor bike fit, which is one of the things that sometimes happens with newer people, the other part of it is just some of the technical skills that you need to learn, like how to position yourself properly in the wind, how to use your gears appropriately. And one of the big ones, kind of like the silent killer of newbies, is being able to corner properly. Now, the first part of cornering, obviously, is being able to take the right line, right arc, and that has to do with a very simple motto that I live and abide by, and you should too. It says, look where you're going, because you're going to go where you're looking. Little country, but very real. At some point, you want to look towards the turn where you're going to be bending, and you're going to have to employ your peripheral vision and your judgment so that you see the degree to which you're going to be turning, and also you can see the type of lean and the type of speed that the other people are taking through the corner. That's the first thing. The second thing that you want to do is, for the sake of safety, you have to have a proper orientation between you and the person in front of you, and the only way to do that is to have them within your glance. The thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to be looking down at the wheel of the person in front of you. If you're looking at them, you want to kind of like be looking at them, but really looking through them. And your vision should really be focused between the hip and the shoulder of the person as they're tilted forward. That's where you look. That allows you to keep your head up high enough so that your gaze or your line of sight is in line with where the bike is going, but also it enables you to see things that are happening not in front of you, but in front of that cyclist, so that you can adjust yourself to any changes that may be taking place. So number one, the arc or the line that you take through the corner is very important. Number two, dealing with braking and shifting. General rule of thumb, do not brake while you're turning. Now, I know that there's some instances where that's inevitable, but whenever you brake while you're turning, your wheels are actually losing traction, which means that you're going to start to wash out. Rather than turning, you're going to slide. So you want to make sure that you gauge this properly so that you're adjusting your speed before you get to the point where you're turning. And the other thing that you want to do is you want to get into the right gear for the exit of the turn. Big time important. And the third aspect of cornering is being able to lean the bike properly, dealing with traction and weight distribution. Now, even though our bikes have a handlebar, we don't turn the handlebar. That's not how we get around corners. The way how we get around corners is by leaning the bike. The more you lean the bike, the more the bike turns. If you're going super fast, you need to lean more. If you're going at a moderate speed, you can lean a little bit less. And it's one of those things where you're going to have to play around with this. Superstars are made in the off season. I'm always encouraging you to practice these skills away from group riding so that you'll understand, based on the relative speed that you're carrying, more or less how much lean you need to take into the corner. So practice, practice, practice. Higher speed, lean a little bit more. Slower speed, then you can afford to lean a little bit less. Now, in terms of leg positioning, pedaling, here's another rule. Always make sure that the leg that's on the outside is pointing down in the 6 o'clock position. The leg that's on the inside of the turn is pointing up. That's in a 12. That pedal needs to be in a 12 o'clock position. Reason being is, number one, we want to have clearance. We want to make sure that the pedal, the inside pedal, can clear the ground while we're turning. And the other thing is that the outside leg pressing down on that pedal actually gives you traction. That's one of the ways that you use it as a counterbalance to make sure that you're leaning the bike, but the bike is not toppling over. Make sense? Again, it's one of those things that you're going to have to practice. Remember though, very, very important. Outside leg pointing down, inside leg with the pedals pointing up. The other thing about that is be very mindful of when you begin to pedal as you're turning, because if you start pedaling too soon in the corner and that pedal, the inside pedal strikes the pavement, you're going to lift the back wheel off of the ground. You're going to get what's called a high side or a high side wobble and potentially have the bike toss you over the handlebars. Nobody wants that. That's not a pretty sight. Okay? So, those are simple tips for cornering more effectively. Again, we're just sitting here talking in the lab. We're being very academic. What you've got to do is you've got to commit to go out and practice this away from the group so that you can get really, really good. Remember, superstars are made in the off season. All right, guys, that's it. Remember, our aim here is to inform, instruct, inspire. Be blessed.